Hi! Welcome to this part of my guide and review of the FlexTale Solo Adventuring Toolkit. If you haven't seen the other parts of this guide and review, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about roles and targets. As always, I am going to be reading a few key paragraphs to you, and I'm going to give you my opinion on those paragraphs. Let's start with a role, the definition of a role. A role is a slot or component of a plot that plays an important part in its story. Roles must be filled by actors. Assigning an actor to a role is called targeting, and the actor assigned to a role is the target of that role. Each role has some additional information that will be described in this section, so it's important to keep a clear sense of terminology within this part of the Solo Adventuring Toolkit. I think this is going to be highly useful when it comes to organizing the elements within a story because, as you will see in a few moments, the term actor the definition is quite loose. It not only applies to player characters and non-player characters within the setting, it also applies to other elements. So let's start with the concept of role. This is a meaningful slot in a plot. You can think of this as a who, what, where, why kind of question. Who got murdered, what was stolen, where was the princess taken, and so forth. Now, when it comes to actor, the game world is populated by actors. Each specific instance of a concept is a different actor. Despite the real-world association with the word actor, with a human in the acting profession, in this Solo Adventuring Toolkit, an actor may be anything. A man, a woman, an orc, a dragon, a sword, a guild, a city, a continent, a plot. You could think of this as any noun that is in your game world. A given object, some sort of item, information, a living being, or perhaps an unliving being. The set of actors in your game world is the complete list of all of the specific nouns that populate it, that your adventuring party is aware of course. This is going to be discovered as you are generating the adventure. In the case that you are generating everything of the solo adventure as you play along, or if you are playing with your group, if you are using the Solo Adventuring Toolkit as a way to randomly determine things or organize some other things, every actor appears as a particular scene or encounter comes into play. You get to know that actor, you know about it. If it's an object, you know about that sword, that book, that special weapon or treasure, etc. And then this plays out into the development of the plotline or a specific plotline. It's worth recognizing that although any game world probably has millions of people, places, and things that populate it, you, as an adventurer, are usually only really aware of a few handfuls of those actors at any given moment. As you play and explore, you will discover more and more actors, like I mentioned earlier. So each non-player character you meet, each town you visit, every item you discover, it adds to the list of actors. The actor trackers contained in the appendix of this book provide an easy way to keep track of the actors in your game world. Now, when it comes to targets, a target is simply a specific thing in your particular game that the plot refers to. Slightly more formally, a target is a specific actor in your game world that fills the role of a plot. For example, in the role of kidnapped victim in a given story, the actor merchant's daughter could be the target of that role. So as you meet people, discover objects, visit places, you're going to be putting actors or assigning actors to specific roles. Assigning a target to a role involves selecting an actor that qualifies and matches the role. Now, this assignment of actors could happen in one of three ways. Maybe by picking, that is you, the dungeon master or game master, as a solo player as well, you pick a preferred actor that makes sense for the role. Perhaps as a result of something that you generated with a table, or that makes sense with a specific plot. Maybe you determine things completely randomly. Which of the actors already defined in your game world gets the role? The actor trackers in the appendix includes a randomizer value for each actor that you note, so that you can simply roll a die to select one actor at random. You could also create a brand new actor that qualifies to be assigned to the role, and make that new actor the target. So no matter the approach that you take, it must make sense with the context of the story and your own preferences for the game. However, this section also includes a role target approach table to randomly determine if you want to pick an actor, if you want to randomly determine things through other tables or subtables, or if you want to create actors. Now let's talk about qualifications. Most roles may only be filled by actors with certain kinds of characteristics. These are qualifications. They can be pretty much any descriptive characteristic. They can refer to an actor's nature, background, current circumstances, or previous history or actions. It's hard to imagine a role that doesn't have at least one qualification. When it comes to dynamic backstory, whatever you don't know about an actor is available to fill in as you generate plots. This is a simple premise, but it leads to infinite possibilities. Any actor at any time could be assigned to a role that grants them additional characteristics and backstory. This is realistic from the player character's perspective, and as an analog for the real world. We don't know very much about the complex intrigue going on in the rest of the world until we interact with it and learn about it. Now, concerning world building by plot generation, you can generate a complex, interesting campaign world with a rich history and engaging current drama simply by continuing to roll up quests. Each plot you generate will have roles, and those roles can be filled with the actors that make most sense with the context of the situation. Now let's talk about imbuements. When an actor is assigned as the target of a role in a dynamically generated quest, an actor may receive one or more attributes that they weren't known to have had before that point. Such newly added characteristics are called imbuements, in that the actor is imbued with these additional pieces of information and backstory. Any qualifications that an actor must meet that did not get vetoed as part of the actor being assigned to a role, that actor immediately receives and is assumed to have always had. So perhaps you will be surprised with how the role of a particular non-player character develops as the story unfolds. Maybe that non-player character that seemed somewhat insignificant with the grand scheme of things suddenly becomes a key part of a specific plotline. Now, here you have an interesting subsection called Sanity Checking Dynamic Backstory. This approach can lead to some truly awesome things. It is a simple, easy to implement way to dynamically generate an infinite amount of intrigue and complexity in any game world, whether it's for your solo gameplay or a traditional group setting. However, this approach is certainly not infallible. It will at times end up imbuing actors you know already in the game world with attributes that you might not have known about, but seem to conflict with what might have made sense for their behavior in your prior interactions. And this makes sense, of course. What if you are playing a fantasy game where you use some sort of detect evil spell to see if a particular non-player character has evil intentions? Or maybe it's a sci-fi setting and you use some sort of lie detector, or maybe some psychic ability to detect lies, so you know that character is clear, but later on, that character fits in the role of a villain or perhaps an ambiguous participant in some sort of nefarious plot. So you could be thinking, but that makes no sense. I use the detect evil spell, or I use this lie detector device, or some psychic power to detect the lies or evil intentions of the character, but maybe that character was not evil at that time. Some months, or perhaps, depending on the time of the campaign, a couple of years, some days, some time passed, and that character steered away from the path of righteousness, or perhaps he's being controlled somehow, or perhaps he was doing something wrong or something bad without being entirely aware of the consequences of some project or action or something. So that's the way that you can add complexity to the game, by understanding the way an actor fits into each role. So it's useful to keep a sort of journal or notes telling you, keeping track of a brief description of each actor and each role. Sometimes a role may be filled by a wide variety of different kinds of actors, but some types might make more sense logically for the role than others. Such attributes for a better fit are called preferences. If you are picking an actor to fill a role, you might only consider picking from among the known actors who meet the preferences for that role. Mechanically, if you are randomly assigning a role to an actor, you might consider rolling twice on your actor tracking list. If one of the actors that results meets the preferences that role mentions, then you pick that actor. And this concludes this part of the guide and review. I think you can use this section to better organize the elements within the unfolding plotline, within the structure. It certainly requires some tweaking or fine-tuning depending on the role-playing game that you are playing, on how much secrecy there is in that role-playing game. If it's a game related to... it contains elements of espionage, diplomacy, backstabbing, it's going to be a very different web or network of connections between actors and roles. So it's all about that, giving priority to the context and assigning actors to the roles as determined randomly, or if it makes sense with the different connections, with the way that plots, quests, and subquests are generated, or that are produced because of the actions of the player character or player characters within a solo adventure. And because of its organizational utility, you can also use these guidelines as tools to better run a group session. If you want to prepare things beforehand, or if you want to reference this document while the characters are taking on a particular social challenge, or figuring out the layout or the situations within an adventure site, you can take a quick look to your list of actors and plots and assign an actor to a plot that makes sense. Thank you for watching this part of the guide and review series. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending the Right-Through RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.